Hello guys, there was some interest regarding the Hyperlapse which I shot with recently released DJI Mini 5 Pro. So I just decided to do a quick tutorial, and we will go through different sections starting from drone setup, then we will speak about preparation for the actual shoot, and then lastly we will go to DaVinci Resolve and actually do all the post-production steps that required to achieve the final goal. So we will start with the drone settings. So the first thing that you will need to do, you will have to go to your settings, go to the control, and then there is also bottom customization option. If you didn't set it before, it will be needed for this hyperlapse to work properly. So you will go to bottom customization, and then what you will just need to do, as you can see here on the C2 button, I just set crease control. So what this allows you to do, it allows you to push the stick, for example front, up, wherever you want it, and then push the button and it will lock it and fly with the same speed and direction which you initially set by pressing this button. So this is one thing that you'll have to do. Now also when shooting hyperlapse, I just for myself find out that usually for whatever reason Mini 5 Pro or 4 Pro just decides to see some obstacle even though there is nothing and stop mid-air. So what you would like to do, you will just like manual obstacle avoid to set it off. Just don't forget it to switch back on once you're done with your shoot to avoid any unnecessary collision. So once you've done all of that, basically you're ready to go for the flight. And now let's speak about the camera settings. Basically for the sunrise, which I was shooting, you have just one chance to shoot it right because the sun just goes very fast. So, and we not necessarily want to change ISO or camera shutter mid-flight, just because later on you will have to compensate it in post. So the way I found it recently, so when I was doing that shoot, that it was like, I think the takeoff was like at 6:30 and AM, and I just went up. You switch into Pro, so you exposing until you're happy with the result. So in my case, I put ISO as minimal as possible, and 100 ISO was actually enough for the brightness in the shadows. So you just have to set your shutter speed until you're happy. In my case, I'm shooting at 60 FPS. So we follow the rule of 180-degree shutter speed, then technically it should be 1/24 but it's not necessary, has to be always be the case. So you can go lower, whatever you need, and I will explain why later. Because the 180 rule is for cinematic look and motion blur lens, which basically our eye is more comfortable with, and this is what you see in all the movies. So let's say I'm happy with this one, but imagine if it was a sunrise. So we need to predict how much more stops we will get when the sun rises. And based on that experience which I had, it was around actually 3 stops. So we have to underexpose if we want to keep it on the same settings. We have to underexpose our image initially at -3 stops. So, but that could be a little bit too dark. So what I would recommend maybe to go with 2 stops under exposure in your rising of the sun, and keep it the way to till the end of your hyperlapse. So in this case, what I would need to do, I would need to lower my shutter until I will have around here is minus 2.3 in the meter. So I will start shooting like this. Again, don't look at this image, right? We have bright sun in the back. So when you will have a sunrise and overall the image, then you will just expose on your brightest point. So in your case, you need to go much lower. If it was exposing for the window, right? So you will need to go much lower so that it was not overblown. But as I'm in interior, you have this lighting condition. But so you underexpose, let's say minus 2 stop over here. So you lock your ISO, you lock your shutter, and you're ready to fly. Right? So, and as we have now C2 bottom set to the cruise control, so what you do, you're going upwards, you pressing gently forward and pressing the C2 button, and it will lock your direction and the speed. Also just want to mention that I didn't went for the inbuilt hyperlapse over here, because I found, for me, like I just found that shooting a video, having more frames to work with, it's basically giving better results than stick to this photo mode. You could still probably have good result with this, but honestly I would rather prefer to have more frames to work with in post and do as any motion blur which I like after speeding up the footage. So I would really recommend go with the video in my case, and it is 4K. We just go to the settings. So it is 4K D-Locam, and also you need to set your white balance to manual. This is also really important, otherwise it will jump all over the place once you will start your shooting. Also, what I would recommend in settings, as you can see here, my sharpness is set to -1, and I really prefer to set it this way from the initial 0, because I think in general by default it over sharpens a little bit the image, and we always can do it in post. We can sharpen it based on our needs later on. Right? So that's mostly the camera settings, white balance, color space, and once you set all of that, you're ready to go. So now we will jump to the planning of the shoot, because it's also important in order to shoot it correctly and not crash your drone because of the battery depleted life. So now we're in Google Earth Pro, and this is where we will actually design our shot, how it will look once we will get to location. Also our direction of flight, where will be the sun, and all of those nuances. So I will also share this KMZ file which you can import to your Google Earth and actually get this DJI cameras presets. There is unfortunately no Mini 4 Pro or 5 Pro, but Mini 5 Pro particular is 24mm lens, and FOV is around 82, so which is close to this Mavic 2 preset. So once you will do that, if you will just double click it, it will actually set your camera to the real optics which will be related to your drone. Now we will just have to fly back to Montreal, where I was actually doing the shoot. So it's somewhere over here. this is exactly the place where I was doing my shoot. So I started from this hill over here, and I just flow towards the Montreal landscape like that. Right, so basically this was my height, so you can also see here the height, elevation on all the details. So you can actually design your shot before the flight. Let me just slightly change it like that. So let's say I'm happy with this composition, right? And I know I will be taking off somewhere here, and I need to fly towards the city for about 20 minutes in general until the battery will be depleted. So on paper we have on Mini 5 Pro around 36 minutes, but I found it's not always true. So usually I'm just taking that 26 minutes is something maximum which drone can achieve in non-ideal conditions, which always the case, right? So, and in our case, I will flow back to my original position. So let's say we're planning to fly with the speed of 0.5 meter per second for 20 minutes, right? So that will give us 20 minutes multiplied by 60 and multiplied by 0.5 meters per second, your cruise speed. So it will give you 600 meters of the footage, and you will still have 6 minutes of battery life to return safely to the home point, right? So now the next step, what I'm doing when I'm planning, I will go above and just do a measurement. So my takeoff point was somewhere around over here, and I will just do the measurements, and for some reason it doesn't allow me to do when I'm this camera mode. 1 second, let me sort it out. Okay, so we are back here. For some reason when importing the KMZ file it doesn't allows me to measure, but here we are. So if this is our starting point, so 600 meters will be somewhere over here, right? So, and this is kind of the safe distance for us for the 6 minutes of the return battery life, because basically if our speed of Mini 5 Pro is around 15 meters per second, right? So then that means this 600 meters, which we will fly in our 20 minutes hyperlapse mode, divided by 15. So we will need just around 40 seconds to return from this point back to the home point, right? But in reality, you need to keep a little bit of the margin. And the reason for that, if we will take a look at current situation, if I was just flying right now in the same spot, right, this is the spot, so we have a wind which is certain kilometers per hour, and that means that divided by 3.6, so it's around 3.6 meters per second, right? And as you can see, as we're flying from here to here, this will be our headwind on the return back. So realistically, instead of 15 meters per second, we will be flying 11.4 max, right? So then if we divide 600 meters by 11.4, so it will be 52 seconds, which is still just a little bit under a minute, and we will still have 5 more minutes of the battery life in case of any emergency, right? So that's the important thing to keep in mind when you fly in hyperlapse, specifically the sunrise, because you don't have another take. You need to shoot in one go. So what is also important over here, specifically the sunrise, and in general what I found useful, we also do have here the sun emulation, and you can actually set it to the day and time exactly where you will be flying. For instance, if I will just go for today's morning, right? So if I was shooting it today, the sunrise over Montreal, I think currently sunrise happening around 6:42 or something like that. We can actually see it over here, right? So this is where our sun is. So as you can see over here, yeah, like 6:48, 6:42, around that time where the sun starts to come out, and you can see the subject of what you're shooting and what exactly happening in exact time of the shoot. It's pretty accurate, I found, so it's really useful for planning when you need to take off, still to capture a little bit of blue light and then the transition of the sunrise, right? So in my case I was rising at 6:33, 7 minutes before the official first ray of the sun, and then so I was capturing 10 minutes before, and then around 30 minutes after sun already starting to rise up. So you will get basically this effect in your footage, right? So that's regarding the planning in general. So just plan it safest way possible so you have enough battery to return back, considering the wind condition on the day of flying. So, and now we will jump to DaVinci Resolve and start looking about post-processing of the video which I recently shot. This is one of the clips which I shot, and this is what I was talking at, taking off at 6:33 and then continuous flight towards planned distance. Now in this particular case I slightly overshoot with the cruise speed, so it was around 0.9 meters per second, and it was too late to correct it. So I flight a little bit more in front than planned, so the distance of returning back was a little bit more than initially was planned. But basically this is our DLocam color space footage, and that's how it went. Right, so I flew like around 900 meters or about a kilometer, something like that. And also, as you will notice here, you see I'm keeping the exposure constant, but then somewhere around here, over here in DJI Fly Up, I was already about one stop over brightened, so I just decided not to risk it and actually changed the shutter speed a few times, right? So that's why I'm saying maybe you can keep -3 stops, but then in this particular frame it will be just too dark, and potentially you will have a lot of noise in the shadows, right? And I will also show you how to correct in post this shutter change so that it was not visible in your final hyperlapse. So as you can see, I changed it over here, then I was keep going, and somewhere over here again I was around already +1 stop metered, and I needed to go even faster shutter speed, right? So this is where I changed it again. But I will show you how to grade all of that on another clip which I shoot in the next take. So after I returned back, I swapped the battery and flew again, but this time with the planned cruise speed. And and this particular clip looks like that. So basically this is when I was changing the initial shutter speed and the ISO, fixing all the stuff, and this is where I start going forward. And as you can see over here, again it's the same situation, the sun is just getting too bright. So at some point we just have to compromise, or we keeping it dark initially, like -3 stops, and going like around +1 stop at the end, or we set it -2 stop, keeping it, and then at some point we have to change the shutter when we getting a little bit over bright. Right. So this is the footage which we will work with, and as you can see, if we will speed it up, right, it's even though the wind was around 5 kilometers per hour, but Mini 5 Pro is pretty lightweight, right? So even with that speed and that slow cruise speed which it was going, it was keep rotating and having this left and right motion, unfortunately, and this is what we will correct in post. Right. So let's jump now to the timeline. So basically this is the project which I was working to create the edits, which I will also share with you. It's for this clip specifically, but as we were working with this, so you bring it to DaVinci Resolve, just drag and drop or importing it, then you create in your timeline, and this is where everything will happen, right? So the first thing that we want to do is actually do the correction of this shutter speed jump which we implemented ourselves, because we was getting a little bit overblown, right? So to do this, what you need to do, you need to go to the Fusion tab over here, and I already done it over here, but I will just show you freshly how it's done. Sorry, not Fusion tab. We first, as we tweaking the color, we will do it in this color panel over here. So and you already see here that I done some correction to correct that frame, and yeah, I just disabled over here. So the first step that we need to do initially when you're here, you will be just with one node, right? So you just add in another one, and to do that you just add node serial, and you can add as many of those as you want, right? But the first node will be our DJI LUT conversion. So, and different people doing differently, some using some different LUTs, some actually applying LUTs on the clip itself in the media tab. So if you will go here, yeah, so actually that is here in the media tab. So once you got over here, what you could do, you could right click and just go to LUTs, and actually you could set your DJI LUT over here, right? But I prefer to work other way around, because if you will do it this way, whatever gradient you're doing later on, it will be on top of already LUTed image, and I prefer to grade before applying the LUT rather than after. So what I would suggest, just go over here and apply your LUT in the notes over there, right? So in this case, Mini 4 Pro, D-Log M to Rec 709, and you can actually download those LUTs for DaVinci Resolve from DJI official site, and probably I will just put a link also in YouTube description for this, right? So we have our LUT. This is our initial step. So the next step would be adding another serial, as you can see here, and it's already with the grade. But let me just create another one freshly done. So we'll just add node serial, so we will work freshly, right? So the idea behind it that we need to find our jump frame. Yeah, so it's somewhere over here. We need to find it exactly. So let me just go. Here we need to find precise position. Yeah, so this is 2 frames, and you can go frame by switching left and right on the keyboard. So what you want to do on this frame where it's still normal, right, you want to go to the keyframes over here, and this is our corrector tool currently, so I just would like to add here dynamic keyframe, right, and I will just zoom in over here to have our keyframes. So this is our first dynamic keyframe. In the next frame we want to add another dynamic keyframe, right, and this is where we will implement our change. Now, so we're not touching this frame, but we have to do to touch this frame to bring it to this look. So the way I am doing it, basically I am looking at the scope over here, and you can see what's happening, right? So we need basically do what? We need to expose it up, right, to match the top portion until it's somewhere in the same region, and maybe a little bit overexposed, so expose it down, something like that, right? So next what we see here, that this is our shadows, and this is our shadows in this frame, so we potentially have to lift a little bit the shadows, right? So I will just go over here and lift the shadows a little bit, just to bring it to the same region over here, right? And then we can see that somewhere in the midtones there is some huge difference, and what I found is that the better way of managing that is actually on the curves over here. You could try to work with the midtones over here or black offset, and there is different ways of doing this, but basically what I done here to match it as close as they possibly can. Let me just again find that jump. Okay, wait a second. It's over here. Right, so this is where the jump happens. So I just added a key somewhere here in the midst, right? And then I'm just dragging it a little bit upwards, just to bring green and red lines over here as close as I can, right? But then obviously the shadows is overlifted, so we now have to decrease our shadows to the way it was, so even more, right? So it's time-consuming process. That's why it's better to keep exposure fixed, so you don't have to spend time on this. But if you have to, you have a way to correct it this way, right? So even more down. Sorry, I'm correcting the wrong frame. So this is the original which we're not touching. Yeah, as you can see, so just maybe a little bit more. Yeah, and as you can see, it's almost there, right? So there is no significant jump anymore in those frames. So it's pretty close. The only difference is this one looks like a little bit less exposed, so what I will do, I will just slightly reduce the overall global exposure over here. and this, and here we are. There is still some jump, so you could spend a little bit more time of tweaking, you know, this curvature, just trying to match a little bit better. But basically this is what I done over here. I will just switch it on. So it's exactly same 2 frames, right? And as you can see, I'm jumping within the frames and there is no difference, almost. And once you will speed it up, there will be no visible jump, right? So this is how you correct in your exposure. I wish it was just exposure change over here, but it's not the case, unfortunately, because it's changing all over the place. So once you've done that, right, this is our neutralizing grade. Let me just remove that. So what I suggest to do next, you should technically render the proxy of this whole flight. In my case, it's around 18 minutes of the footage. So what I do, I just go into rendering, right, and then I just render in QuickTime, and I'm going as much possible quality as I can. Now I don't suggest to go to Apple ProRes 444 because it's just overkill. It will take too much space, but at least you need to go to 422 HQ just to preserve the quality, right? Because you will render it, then you will render it again, so not losing the on compression. Just pre-renders 422 HQ and just that way. So once you will have it, right, the next thing, oh, wait a second, guys. So before pre-rendering it with the color, what we will have to do, we will have to stabilize it. So this is another step before rendering the proxy, right? Because this footage, as you can see, it's pretty jerky. So we need to stabilize it. There is few ways of stabilizing it in DaVinci Resolve, and one of those using built-in stabilization over here. But I found it not working exactly as I want all the time. It works for some scenarios, it doesn't work for others. So let me just try to do this stabilize for now. It will take a little bit of time because footage is really long, but let's do that. So I will pause the video and I will let it run until it's done, and I will resume the recording once it's finished. Okay, so the stabilization is finished. Let's just see what it does for us. And as you can see, it probably improved in some areas, but not necessarily as we want it to be, right? There is still this, and at the end, yes, there is this huge rotation, so we're not looking at that. We will cut it out. But in between over here, it's decent, but still there is some jumps here and there, which I would like to avoid. Right, that's why I will show you another technique which I personally use, and it's done in the Fusion tab over here. So we'll just switch off the stabilization for now, jump to Fusion, and the way you doing it, you can see here I do have 2 transform nodes already. For some reason, while I'm selecting those, because there's so many keyframes, it just hangs for a while, so I will stop the recording and it will come back. Okay, we're live again, and yeah, and so if you will press the Control Space button, and then we'll just type planar tracker, and there's 2 types. Like, I don't know what's the difference between those, but I'm just using this one. Right, so you have your planar tracker over here, so you connected it, you connected the media out, like that. Right, and then what you're doing here, you specifying so first of all you go into the first frame, and then you specify an area which you want to stabilize. Right? In my case, what I would like to do, I would like to stabilize the city in the back. I'm not necessarily cared about the front part because the viewer will mostly see in the middle of the frame in the city, right? So you just basically paint an area, right, which you want to track, just like that. And then here what you need to change is few things. So the tracker is, yes, it's point, motion type. In our case we need translation and rotation. In some case maybe you will need as well the scale, if you would like to keep city in the same size and just stabilize it completely, but we need translation and rotation in our case. And the rest parameters you can keep as is. Okay. So next what you will do, you will just basically drag to the end, and once you will press that button, it will start analyzing per frame all of the points in the area which you specified. Now it could take for this almost 20 minutes clip quite a while to finish, but it's still pretty fast, so just you will need to wait, right? There is no other way around. So once you're done with that, and I will not continue because it will take a few hours to complete, right? And I already have it over there. So once you're done with this, if you will just take those few frames, you see like it's captured some points, right, over there. And the last thing that you want to do, you need to change operation mode from track to stabilize over here. And what this will do, it will actually stabilize your footage based on the track points which you just done. Right, so now let's see the whole thing which I tracked the same way. Right, this one. This is our planar tracker. Actually, again, it can become a little bit slow when you first connecting it, so we will wait. Okay, we're back live. So this is planar tracker which I done connected now, and we can actually see it in action. Right, so I'm just going fast forwarding, and now what you can see, the CT, whatever I tracked, actually stays pretty good in the back. So once you will speed it up, it will be just much better than the default stabilize which you just see. Right now, once stabilize is done, obviously, as you can see, because the drone was drifting a little bit and rotating, we have to add a transform node to remove first of all those black gaps, right, which we have here and there, especially in the back, but we're not touching the back because you see here what's happening when the drone is rotated and the stabilization is happening. Now the lens is coming to the effect and it's kind of distorting, right? So it's doing the bulge. Unfortunately, we cannot do much about that. I think there is a way to play a little bit with the lens filter and also maybe try the tracker mode and perspective mode rather than translate rotate, but I didn't try it myself yet, so maybe this is exercise for another shoot. But the way how you fix this thing over here, right, this frame going left, right, everywhere, so you just add in transform node, and the way you're doing it, so you just add in the keyframes in most extreme cases. So I have probably keyframe over here, right, initially, and yes, you will have to zoom slightly just to cover the compensate, the missing part. So in my case, I am scaling up 4%, which is not much, and it's still retaining pretty good detail at the end. So it is safe to do this like up to 5% probably. Now and then you just go into the frames where the motion is happening, right? And then you just I will connect it so that you can see the effect. And then you just moving it where you need, right? So in this case I'm slightly compensating it horizontally just to not scale more than 5%. So I'm keeping it reasonably low. So now our whole frame is good, so there is no black bars. And now this is the time where we just doing the pre-render of this whole clip, right? So it's now stabilized. And it has the grading, right, of that jump that we already fixed. So you're doing this pre-render, then you bringing it back to DaVinci Resolve, and this is that clip specifically, right? So this is why I'm doing the speed up. Let it think for a while. Okay, so we're back over here. Let's say this is our pre-rendered clip. Right now we need to speed it up. In my case, I'm doing the speed up 20 times, so to value of 2000 over here. And if I will just quickly disable all of these effects over here, I'll just zoom in slightly. So once you will do that, and let me just find there was some moving car in front. Yeah, this one, right? So basically why some hyperlapse is looking bad. The reason for that, there is not enough of the motion blur, right? Because it's strobing, and if you're using the traditional technique with the photos, you need to set your shutter pretty long in order to cap enough motion blur, so when you speeded it up, it was looking good. Now, and that's why I prefer to shoot video, because now I do have control how I do in my motion in post. So first thing, I just want to cover some filter settings, and the way you add in filters, you go into your effects tab and you find in all the filters over here, including the motion blur and motion trails, which we'll use. Alright, the first filter which I'm adding is the sharpen, and this is, remember we were setting in the settings sharpen -1, and I was saying we will add it in post, and this is where we're doing exactly that. Right, so this is kind of the difference before and after. So we're introducing a little bit of that sharp look, and we control as much sharpness as we need rather than just have it baked, right? So we have the sharpness, it's a little bit more sharp than the original one. The next filter what you want to add is motion trails, and what it is doing, I will just show you on the car, right? This is your motion blur, and this is what some hyperlapses are lacking if it's not shot properly. Now, and as I can see here, because we're speeding up 2000%, we basically 20 times, we have 20 steps in between, which will be our motion blur, right? It gives this really nice detailed motion blur, and on top of that, I usually just add motion blur node as well, and just set it to better, large, and 100%. It will enhance it even more, just not to see those individual trails, right? So once you're done with this, what I suggest you to do is pre-render this retimed clip again, because it can be a little bit slow. So you're just doing the pre-render and bringing it back to DaVinci Resolve, and you have your ready clip. Alright, we'll just do it like that, full screen, not this one. So this is our Hyperlapse. It has a little bit of wobbling motion in the start because I was tweaking a little bit the drone, but in mostly it's looking pretty nicely, and the city is stable, and there is no color jumps and all of that artifacts not here. Right. So basically this is our 20 minutes lens shoot that we shortened into just around 44 seconds. Right. So in this reel you can speed it up even more, I think, like 4000%, and it will still give you nice result. And before we will wrap this tutorial, I would like just to show you a result of using this technique and that specific shoot of the sunrise over Montreal, which I shot recently. It also have dash cam hyperlapse clips there, which using exactly the same technique. So I hope you will enjoy it. And so that's mostly the process, and I hope you enjoyed it. And if you like this kind of content, just give me a like and subscribe for any future tutorials or some content which may be useful in our drone journey. So thank you very much, and have a good day.